In 2026, the hypothetical scenario of a two-front war involving India against a combined Pakistan and Bangladesh is framed by the intense military and diplomatic shifts of 2025. To understand who wins and how it ends, we must analyze the new normal established after Operation Sindoor, May 2025, and the current state of regional intelligence. 1. The military balance: Army, Navy, Air Force. India enters 2026 with a defense budget that hit a record high in 2025, focusing on civil-military fusion (CMF) and indigenous technology. Air Force (IAF). In May 2025, the IAF demonstrated its superiority by destroying 20% of Pakistan's Air Force infrastructure, fighter jets and SAM systems, in just 4 days. India's Sudarshan Chakra, a multi-layered air defense system including S-400s, has proven capable of intercepting Turkish drones and Chinese missiles simultaneously. Navy. India's carrier battle groups and nuclear submarines, like INS Arighat, would likely execute a total naval blockade of Karachi and Chittagong. This would cripple both nations' economies within a week, as they are heavily dependent on seaborne trade and fuel imports. Army. While Pakistan has specialized mountain units and Bangladesh has a defensive posture, India has recently operationalized Bhairav Light Commando battalions and Ashni drone platoons for high-altitude and precision warfare. 2. Intelligence, RAW versus ISI and DGFI. In late 2025, reports emerged of Bangladesh's DGFI and Pakistan's ISI coordinating more closely to counter Indian influence. However, RAW Secretary Parag Jain maintains a significant structural advantage. Internal stability. RAW's primary goal would be to prevent internal fronts, sabotage, or communal unrest, which are often more dangerous than external border wars. Cyber warfare. India's 2025 Year of Reforms integrated AI and cyber offense into the military. RAW would likely disable the power grids and communication hubs in Dhaka and Islamabad before the first ground troops moved. 3. Foreign affairs and the Trump factor. The most critical variable in 2026 is the U.S. administration. U.S. mediation. President Trump claimed credit for stopping the 2025 conflict via trade and tariffs pressure. In a 2026 war, the U.S. would likely use its 50% tariffs on India and its influence over the IMF, crucial for Pakistan's survival, to force an immediate ceasefire. The China trap. While China provides 81% of Pakistan's hardware, it treated the 2025 conflict as a live lab to test its weapons against India's Western origin systems. China is unlikely to enter a hot war directly, fearing a global trade backlash and a clash with the US. 4. Technical conclusion. Who wins? India would win technically and strategically, but all three nations would lose economically. Military outcome. India's deep strike capability, BrahMos and long-range Pinaka rockets, would degrade the command structures of Pakistan and Bangladesh faster than they could retaliate effectively on Indian soil. Diplomatic outcome. The war would likely end within 10 days due to intense pressure from the US, Secretary Marco Rubio, and China. The final blow. The war would end with a hotline call between DGMOs, much like the May 10, 2025 ceasefire. Key takeaway. India's zero-tolerance doctrine means it no longer waits for a long war of attrition. It uses overwhelming air and cyber power to force a technical victory before the neighbors can mobilize a joint ground offensive. Would you like me to analyze the specific role that Chinese-made drones versus Indian Sudarshan Chakra defenses would play in this 2026 aerial battlefield? In 2026, the battle for the skies has moved beyond traditional dogfights. The real conflict between India and its neighbors, Pakistan and Bangladesh, now centers on drone swarms versus advanced air defense shields. Following the real-world combat tests of Operation Sindoor in May 2025, we have a clear technical picture of how this drone war would play out. 1. The Sudarshan Chakra, S-400 versus swarm tactics. In May 2025, Pakistan launched a massive retaliatory wave of drones and missiles. India's Sudarshan Chakra, the localized name for the S-400 system, became the first in the world to be tested against a high-density saturated attack. The outcome: the system intercepted nearly 100% of incoming threats. Its 96L6E radar detected targets from 600 kilometers away, allowing India to look deep into Pakistani and Bangladeshi airspace before their drones even crossed the border. The advantage: unlike older systems, Sudarshan Chakra can track 300 targets simultaneously and engage 36 at once. In 2026, India has 3 fully operational regiments, with 2 more arriving by August 2026, creating a no-fly zone that covers almost all of Pakistan. 2. The multi-layered shield. India doesn't just rely on the S-400. To prevent cheap drones from wasting expensive S-400 missiles, they use a tiered defense. Layer, system, range, target type, outer, S-400 Sudarshan, 400 kilometers. Ballistic missiles, AWACS, high-end jets. Middle, Akashingi, MRSAM, 30 to 70 kilometers. Fighter jets, cruise missiles, large drones. Inner, VSHORADS, laser DUW, 5 to 10 kilometers. Swarm drones, loitering munitions, helicopters. 3. Electronic and laser warfare, the soft kill. The biggest shift in 2026 is the use of directed energy weapons, DEW. Laser systems. During the 2025 skirmish, DRDO's indigenous 5 kW lasers were used to literally burn the electronics of incoming multicopters. Spoofers and jammers. India reported over 790 drone incursions in 2025 alone. Most were neutralized without firing a single missile. Instead, electronic spoofers took control of the drone's GPS, forcing them to land or fly back to their launch points. 4. Pakistan and Bangladesh's drone strategy. Pakistan relies heavily on Chinese-made Wing Lung 2 and Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drones. While effective in Ukraine and Libya, they struggled against India's Integrated Air Defense (IADWS) in 2025. Bangladesh primarily uses smaller surveillance drones. In a 2026 conflict, they would likely serve as distractions rather than a primary strike force. How the war technically ends in the skies. The war ends when the neighbor's cost of attack exceeds their capability. 1. Surgical neutralization. India uses its own Bhairav battalions, specialized drone warfare units, to strike the launch pads within Pakistan and Bangladesh. 2. Economic exhaustion. Every drone Pakistan loses costs them millions in foreign exchange, paid to China or Turkey. India's defense, being increasingly indigenous, Atmanirbhar, allows it to sustain a defensive shield for much longer. 3. The final signal. The war technically ends when the DGMOs, Director Generals of Military Operations, exchange a hotline call after Pakistan, Bangladesh realize their aerial swarm cannot penetrate the Sudarshan Chakra. Would you like me to detail how the RAW and ISI intelligence war would impact internal stability in India and Bangladesh during these 10 days of conflict? In 2026, an intelligence-led war between India and a combined Pakistan-Bangladesh front would be won in the shadows long before the tanks stop moving. Following the events of Operation Sindhu, May 2025, the role of RAW has shifted from passive collection to preemptive neutralization. Here is how the intelligence and internal stability war would play out. 1. RAW versus ISI. The internal sabotage war. The greatest threat to India in 2026 isn't a border invasion but internal fronts. The ISI, Pakistan, has pivoted toward disinformation warfare. ISI strategy. Intelligence alerts from early 2026 show the ISI using deep fake technology and social media bots to trigger communal unrest within Indian border states, hoping to force the Indian army to divert troops from the front lines to domestic policing. RAW's counter. RAW and the Intelligence Bureau (IB) now utilize NATGRID, a centralized data hub, to track suspicious financial transactions in real time. In this scenario, RAW would likely activate its deep assets within Pakistan to trigger provincial instability, such as in Balochistan, forcing the ISI to look inward rather than focusing on India. 2. The Bangladesh Third Front complexity. The intelligence war in the east is more volatile due to the 2024-2025 political shift in Dhaka. The power vacuum. Since the ouster of the Awami League, Bangladesh has seen a rise in anti-India sentiment. DGFI, Bangladesh intelligence, is currently caught between student-led secular movements and radical factions. RAW's play. RAW's primary goal would be to prevent a unified command between the Pakistan and Bangladesh militaries. By supporting secular democratic factions within Bangladesh, RAW would aim to create a political crisis in Dhaka that prevents their army from fully committing to a war alongside Pakistan. 3. Cyber warfare, the technical knockout. In 2026, the first shots are digital. India's Defence Cyber Agency (DCA) would work with RAW-2. Grid collapse, disable the power grids in Islamabad and Dhaka. This was a major point of vulnerability identified in the 2025 skirmishes. Financial freeze, using cyber-offensive tools to lock the foreign exchange reserves of the opposition, making it impossible for them to buy fuel or ammunition on the global market. 4. Who wins the foreign policy war? Foreign policy is India's strongest shield. In 2026, the global landscape favors Indian stability. The US, Trump administration. While the US has imposed 50% tariffs on many nations, it views India as an essential partner against China. The US would likely provide India with satellite intelligence, geospatial data, to track Pakistani troop movements in real time. The Middle East. India has successfully de-hyphenated its relationship with the Arab world. Nations like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, who are major investors in India, would likely remain neutral or quietly pressure Pakistan to cease hostilities to protect their investments. The final outcome: India wins technically because of its intelligence depth. While Pakistan and Bangladesh might achieve small tactical gains on the border, they cannot survive the internal collapses triggered by RAW's counterintelligence and the global economic isolation orchestrated by Indian diplomacy. The war would end not with a surrender document, but with a UN-mandated ceasefire, where India holds the strategic high ground. Would you like me to create a detailed comparison of the specific cyber-offensive tools India uses versus the disinformation tactics used by the ISI? This video provides the historical context of the rivalry between these two agencies, which is essential for understanding how their modern 2026 strategies evolved. YouTube video views will be stored in your YouTube history, and your data will be stored and used by YouTube according to its terms of service.